Hey guys, Seven here. So it's been over a year since I brought you my last DD Elementalist build video, and a lot has changed since then, especially in the recent patch we just had. So I thought it was about time I brought you the updated build, so all you people who are like me and love the playstyle can get the maximum potential out of it. As you can see by the stats on the screen, I've improved my gear quite a lot and actually managed to gain another 400 power while losing hardly anything in return. That on top of the recent trait changes have really improved this build. But anyway, that's enough chatting, let's jump right into this and show you what I'm running now. First, let's start off with my favourite bit, the gear. We're running 2 Marauder daggers, one with energy sigil and one with battle sigil, both with power infusions. We're also using full Marauder armour with divinity runes and full precision infusions, and finally for the trinkets we're using full crusaders, all precision infusions also. Now for the food, we're running oysters with cocktail sauce, which grant us 10% damage reduction and 70 precision, and we're also using superior sharpening stones for the increased power. Now you can also run durability runes over divinity. It gives you a lot more survival, but you do sacrifice quite a bit of damage, and I personally prefer the extra damage, but it's all down to personal tastes. Now let's go over the slot skills. For our heal, we're using Signet of Restoration, which grants us 236 healing anytime we cast a skill. This is the absolute best heal to use on this build as we cast so many skills so quickly, but also due to the fact all our other heals are extremely easy to interrupt. Next we take Misform. Misform makes us invulnerable to all damage for 3 seconds and is also a stun break. This ability is extremely good for avoiding damage, and you can also use it while stomping or rezzing people, making it extremely valuable for securing stomps or rezzes in pressured situations. The next skill we use is Armour of Earth. This skill gives us protection and stability for 7 seconds and also breaks stuns as well, making it extremely effective for countering CC, reducing burst damage and securing stomps and rezzes. And now for my favourite skill, Lightning Flash. This skill teleports us 900 range and also applies damage to enemies in the surrounding area. This skill is extremely valuable for mobility, but also we're able to use it in conjunction with other skills to create so many awesome combos, which I would be happy to cover in another video if that's something people want to see. And now for our elite, we're using Conjure Fiery Greatsword. This skill, well, it does what it says. It conjures a Fiery Greatsword replacing your main skills, but also conjures another one at a location of your choice, which other players can pick up also. This Greatsword is extremely good for kiting and chasing down players, but also cleaving as well, making this the absolute best elite to use when roaming. Now there is a couple of other options you can run. You can use Cleansing Fire instead of Misform. This skill cleanses 5 conditions and applies burn to a maximum of 5 enemies also. This skill is extremely good if you find yourself running into a lot of condition builds, otherwise I would personally stick to Misform. And finally, for me personally, when I duel I prefer to use Glyph of Elements over Fiery Greatsword. This skill summons an elemental based on what attunement you're in. Now there's only 2 of these that are worth using, and which one depends on what you're dueling. The Air Elemental is great versus mobile enemies and enemies with stealth. This elemental's attack is channeled, meaning if it is already channeling and an enemy stealths, the attack will track where the enemy player is. The active ability of this pet is also a ranged stun, which is great for setting up bursts. The second elemental worth using is the fire one. This elemental can do a crazy amount of damage and is great versus tanky opponents. I've seen the active skill of this elemental hit upwards of 6k before, so if you're struggling to down a rather tanky opponent, this elemental definitely helps. Now let's move on to the part you've probably all been waiting for, the traits. Let's start with the water line. We're using Stop, Drop and Roll, which removes burning and chill from nearby allies and ourselves whenever we dodge with an internal cooldown of 10 seconds. Chill messes with the cooldown of our attunements, locking us out of certain skills, which can be a real death sentence for Ellas, so this trait helps to minimise the chance of that happening. Next we use Soothing Disruption. This trait reduces the cooldown of our cantrips by 20% and also grants 7 seconds of regeneration and vigour whenever we use a cantrip. All 3 of our utility skills are cantrips, which makes this trait invaluable. The reduced cooldown is a must-have, and the regeneration synergizes well with our next trait, which is Cleansing Water. Cleansing Water cleanses 1 condition whenever you apply regeneration, and thanks to Soothing Disruption, all our cantrips now apply regeneration as well, meaning they will now cleanse 1 condition when used, and that on top of all our other ways of accessing regeneration makes this trait invaluable for dealing with conditions. Now there is one change you can make. You can swap Stop, Drop and Roll for Soothing Eyes, which gives you regeneration and Frost Aura when you are critically hit, with a cooldown of 20 seconds. The only time I ever really use this is in duels vs power builds, as the Frost Aura is pretty nice for the damage reduction, and well, because Stop, Drop and Roll is pretty useless versus builds with no chill or burn, but for general roaming I definitely would stick with Stop, Drop and Roll. Now let's move on to the next trait line, Arcane. We're using Renewing Stamina, which grants us 5.5 seconds of Vigor when we crit on a 10-second cooldown. This trait is great for making sure we always have Vigor up, allowing us to dodge more often. The next trait we use is Elemental Contingency. This trait grants us a boon when we are struck based on what attunement we are in, which is great for helping us maintain our boons. Then finally, we use Evasive Arcana. This trait casts a skill when we dodge based on the attunement we are in. This is an absolute staple of this build thanks to a couple of specific skills, Shockwave being one of them. This skill cripples and bleeds nearby foes whenever we dodge in Earth, but also is a blast finisher on a 10-second cooldown, which allows us to blast our fire fields, granting us might, which helps us maintain very high levels of might, increasing our damage by a significant amount. Then we have Cleansing Wave. This skill heals you and nearby allies and also cleanses a condition whenever you dodge in water, which is great for helping us sustain ourselves. This is also on a 10-second cooldown. The other two aren't quite as impactful, but can still be used to great effect nonetheless. Dodging in air casts Blinding Flash, which blinds up to 5 nearby enemies, and the final one is Flame Burst, which deals some damage and burns nearby enemies when you dodge in fire. Now you can make a couple changes to this line also. You can run Arcane Precision over Renewing Stamina. This trait gives you a 33% chance to apply a condition whenever you crit. This is pretty strong for when you are camping in air, thanks to the fact air crits apply weakness, which reduces incoming damage. Then next you can take Final Shielding over Elemental Contingency. This trait casts Lesser Arcane Shield on you when your health drops below 50%. Lesser Arcane Shield blocks 3 attacks and then explodes, dealing a rather nice amount of damage. This trait is great if you find yourself being burst down often, as it can negate a lot of incoming damage. Now finally, for the last trait line, Fire. For the first trait we're using Burning Fire. This trait casts Lesser Cleansing Fire on you when you have 3 or more conditions. This removes 3 conditions and applies burn to 5 enemies around you too. This skill is also a cantrip, so it will apply Vigor and Regeneration thanks to Soothing Disruption. The next trait we use is Power Overwhelming. This trait increases our power by 150 when we have at least 10 might, which thanks to Battle Sigil and our fire fields we will have 90% of the time. The next trait we use is Blinding Ashes, which inflicts blind whenever you apply burn to a target on an 8-second cooldown. This is an extremely strong defensive skill. Now there is one change you can make to this trait line. You can run Burning Precision over Burning Fire. This skill increases our burning duration by 20%, but also gives our critical hits a 33% chance to apply burn. This synergizes great with Blinding Ashes because it allows us to apply even more blind more frequently. So if you find yourself not needing the extra cleanse from Burning Fire, this is a very good trait to take. So that covers everything with the build. I hope you found this helpful, and if you do decide to try the build, I hope you have fun playing it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments or whisper me in game. Thank you very much for watching.